Here we are. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this latest live discussion on Pathlight Thrive Hive, if indeed that's where you're joining us. So you may be watching on YouTube, in which case welcome to you as well. So if you don't know, Pathlight Thrive Hive is a Facebook group. So you can join the group if you want to join in with these things live in future, if you are watching on Facebook. So just search for Pathlight Thrive Hive on Facebook. I think it's facebook.com/groups/Pathlight Thrive Hive. I should get a little banner up for that, shouldn't I? I'll sort that out for next time. So yeah, brilliant. So if you're in the group and you're enjoying it, so you find it useful, then feel free to share it with lots of other people as well. That's a wonderful thing to raise awareness, raise connection, inspire people, and hopefully we can all learn something and support each other through these ongoing tricky times. So bring them in, bring more people in. It's all good. And if you are enjoying it and you'd like to drop me some spondoolies, then please do so at buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. You can just drop me £3, buy me a virtual coffee at the end of this session if you get something out of it. That'd be much appreciated, thank you. Or you can subscribe there as well for £7 a month and get various discounts and stuff like that. All good gubbins. So thank you to everyone who's done so already, much appreciated. And I realised the other day that, this isn't my business thing, but it's kind of connected to my business. So my company is called Pathlight Limited. So I thought I'd put a little banner at the bottom just to tell you what we do, in case any of this is going to be useful to anyone who's watching. So yes, it's pathlight.org.uk, and what I do is mental health first aid courses, which is the mental health equivalent of physical first aid, if you weren't aware. It's a wonderful course, very enlightening and connecting and inspiring, and it's all about raising awareness of mental health issues, how to support people. It gives you the confidence to be able to start those difficult conversations, reassure people, support them, and signpost them to appropriate professional support. So it's all good. I also do workplace wellbeing programs and coaching, webinars and workshops all around wellbeing and mental health and supporting families with relationships and such like. So if any of that is useful to you, you can just go to my website, pathlight.org.uk, or drop me an email, info@pathlight.org.uk. Should have been doing that for the past year, really, shouldn't I? But never mind. There we go. So tonight we've got Karl Dillon joining us live for a discussion about addiction and recovery. So I won't steal his thunder by saying too much about his journey, but it's a very inspiring story, and I hope you will get something from it. If you've got any questions for Karl as we go along, just pop them in the comments box. And if you want us to know what your name is, you can either just type your name before your comment, because we can't see who you are, or you can go to that little link there, streamyard.com/Facebook, and give StreamYard, this software that I use, StreamYard, permission to use your name and little profile photo, and then that'll pop up when we get your comments. Or you can remain anonymous to us, whichever you prefer. So without further ado, we'll bring Karl in and do interact if you wish to do so. So Karl, welcome to Pathlight Thrive Hive, and thank you for being here, sir.
My pleasure to be here, Paul. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure, yes. So Karl, as I queued you up whilst we were in the backstage area, I have some standard questions that I ask all of the guests that join us in Pathlight Thrive Hive. So my first one's just to check in, and I'm doing it in the format of an old Indian proverb, which says that each of us are like a house with 4 rooms, and those rooms are the mental room, the emotional room, the physical room, and the spiritual room. And the idea is that we should go into each of those rooms every day in order to just give them an airing and make sure we're having a nice balanced approach to our lives. So it's a kind of 4-room check-in, if you're happy to do that, Karl, and just tell me, how are you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically at the moment?
Right, let's test these 4 rooms. Hopefully I'll do a better job of 4 rooms than the Quentin Tarantino film back in the 90s. So we shall start off with maybe physically. I'm probably not in the greatest shape due to, should we say, the lockdown diet. I've been involved for the past few years in a project called Man vs Fat Football, which was basically getting guys playing football and losing weight. And unfortunately, with the lockdown, that has actually caused this to be put on suspension at the moment. But luckily, I've heard that things are opening back up again, and we can get back out and get playing. I was playing 4 or 5 times a week sometimes. So even though I've been getting out on my bike for a bit of mountain biking and stuff like that around Sale, it doesn't seem to have the same appeal, and I can't wait to get back into the swing of things. Emotionally and mentally, I would say I'm doing pretty good. I've kind of weathered the storm so far. I've got a lot of things to look forward in my life. As we'll probably touch on later, that my journey has taken me out of a dark place into a much brighter place. So I think all that is very positive. And spiritually, I'm as I am. I'm not a faith-based person. I'm more of a scientific kind of person, but I do certainly hold the right that everyone has their own beliefs and their own faith, and we'll discuss openly with people what they believe in and what they hold dear. Whatever works for anyone else is fine by me. So that's kind of how I'm feeling up to now.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you for that detailed check-in. And yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying on the exercise, Karl, that it has to be something that we're interested in. Otherwise, we're not going to do it, are we? Yeah. So it's, I look forward to the football and everything reopening so you can get back out there and do something you enjoy. Yeah. Okay, so next question is how are you coping, or how have you been coping with this whole pandemic situation? You spoke about you kind of how it's affected you physically, but how's it been otherwise?
I think, as I will explain later on, probably in the interview, I didn't cope so well at the beginning of it. There's a lot of things kind of I did find was quite isolating, and a lot of things reared their ugly head, so to speak. But as things have gone on, as I've gained strength from various groups, various individuals, and myself, most importantly, I've kind of come out of it. I feel like it's been kind of a necessary period of time in my life to sort of regroup. And in quite an ironic way, if it never did happen, I don't think I ever would have been able to have that time to regroup. So it's well, luckily I myself and my family and my close friends haven't been badly affected by this quite horrendous virus disease, but I know a lot of people have, and obviously it can't be taken lightly. But on a personal note, it's kind of pressed the pause button on my life, which I kind of needed just at the right time. So it has been a good ground, as I say, to good area of time to regroup. And yeah, I'm in a way I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. So challenging, but also perhaps needed in some respects to press pause. Yeah. Great stuff. Okay. And final question: what do you love? What are your passions?
Well, my passions, well, first and foremost is my daughter, who's I separated from her mother probably 10 years ago, and my life has been quite rocky, but with my own addiction. And I think I haven't really, up until maybe the last couple of years, the last year especially, got a close bond and a close connection, which I think I let go. Or just didn't value. I've changed my whole value sort of system, shifted things along. But then, you know, that's a father's love for his child is kind of quite, you know, probably a standard answer. On the other side, I like my sports. I like football. I like watching it. I like playing it while my knees still hold out. I like a lot of American sports, like American football, like ice hockey. I used to play American football. Never played ice hockey because I can't skate for toffee. Music, cinema, quizzes. In a way, that's why I think the lockdown had affected me to start with, because I do feel like I am quite a social person. I like getting out. I like interacting with other people. And I think, yeah, that's what, in the first instance, I think that hit me hard when all those things are taken away from you. But touch wood, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it is tough, isn't it, when so many of the things that we love we're not able to do anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, thank you for that, Karl. It's good to kind of get to know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
So that's you. Now we'll move on to your journey. So just in your own words, really, Karl. Just happy for you to share what happened, however you want to present it.
Well, start from the beginning. I've had, I would say, probably what I thought was a pretty normal life upbringing. Had a good relationship with my mum and dad, but various events which I'd probably buried in my own subconscious that did take place in my childhood, that I was unaware of. Well, unaware of the effects of them, shall we say, caused me to develop a love of fruit machines, a love of the addiction, that the allure of a fruit machine. I never knew why I loved it, but since an early age, the fascination was there. And that addiction then, over the years, has grown into a compulsion. I was drawn to my gambling addiction has always been on fruit machines, or fixed odds betting terminals, as they are more frequently known nowadays in the betting shops. And I then used that as an escape from my life's problems. And I think then it then became, as I say, a compulsion, which leads you to literally every emotion that you can't control. You feel sad, I gambled. You feel happy, you gambled. You felt lost, you gambled. You felt alive, you gambled. It was all, every time things went out of the normal comfort sphere, be it on the good or the bad spectrum, I felt like I was gambling. And it did, for quite a long time, it didn't control my life as such. It was just, it was followed the map of my life. When things were going well, in a normality, there wasn't the need, there wasn't the compulsion. My life was kind of already full of things which I was concentrating on, which I was there. The problem started coming when it started changing me as a person. It started taking control of my personality. And although I wasn't aware at the time, I'd become the person who then was attracting the wrong type of people to be around with. And I think then that's when I started making bad choices with the likes of relationships, and which then led to more consternation, which in turn led to a downward spiral of more gambling, and downward it went until I would say approximately 2 years ago, when I literally felt like I was going through a very, very bad time in the second marriage. We'd only been married just under a year, and the arguments were constant. The unease in the house was constant, and I was escaping it. It was affecting my work. It was affecting everything around me. I still do run my own business, but everything was kind of falling around me. And the more it did, the more I escaped into gambling. And there was a period then in my life where I thought I had a three-way. There was a three-way junction in my life. The options were: I seek help, arrest this, and get help, move on with my life, admit that I'm powerless to do it, to control this, or continue on the same path I was on and just ruin everything, take it literally to the pits of hell, or take my own life. Luckily, as my family motto is Dum Spiro Spiro, which means where there's life, there's hope. So taking my own life was fortunately, in my mind, not an option. But as I've more and more studied the gambling as an addiction, it is the single biggest reason for suicide in young men. And there's a lot of shame and guilt and attached to it, literally so much that people will not reach out for help. But luckily for myself, I had, I don't know, the wherewithal or certain attachments in my life, my daughter, some close friends who I thought I can reach out, my sister as well, who I could reach out to. So that option was taken away. I didn't feel like I wanted to continue with this feeling of unease and dread and all the various gamut of emotions that the gambling brought with me. So I reached out and I spoke to, I found a number online for Gam Care, who put me in touch, who were very good, put me in touch with a lady who did CBT. And so I started on a course of that. At the same time, playing the football, which I did, I was losing a lot of the weight and I felt really good physically. One of the members there, our mutual friend, Mike Richard, was in the infancy of his Talk About It Mate mental health group and the men's help group. And I knew he was into counselling, and I thought, I'm going to ask. I spoke to him one of the times actually after, it was bizarre, after a very aggressive game of five-a-side where we were both kicking lumps out of each other. I came to talk to him, and I think he thought I was going to continue an argument or a heated debate, should we say, about our antics on field. And I actually opened up to him, and he was the catalyst then to say, instead of looking at your actions, look at the actions behind it, look at the mental health side of it. And basically I haven't really looked back from that point. I've become like more of a sponge. I want to learn more about why I did it. Obviously I met yourself along the route. You directed me to the work of, I can still never pronounce his name, Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
You told me to read, which I did, the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts. Yeah, I remember that was what you said. So yes, I have actually read that on your recommendation. The last time we met, I think, was probably about maybe 18 months ago, I think, was it?
Yeah, probably was.
Probably was, yeah. So that was then. I did the CBT. I thought everything was going well. I confided in my sister, because at the time I didn't feel easy with my then second wife. And as time went on, it did come out with her, and basically ended up as one of the reasons why she put down for our divorce, even though I never touched a penny of her money. I ruined my own money. I ruined my own business. Well, nearly ruined my own business. But yeah, again, as I said, I was in a relationship with the wrong person for all the wrong reasons at that time. So we're talking the end of 2019. She said she wants to divorce me, citing the gambling. Again, yeah. It was quite a hard pill to swallow when you open up your emotions and then the one person you think you've married for the right reason throws it back in your face. And then some would say quite fortuitous break in my daily life was when I came off my bike and broke my collarbone and punctured my lung and broke 4 ribs and spent a week in hospital. And again, that bizarre twist of fate gave me the time to really reconcile what I was doing, to really contemplate what I wanted from life, where I'd gone, look at things, look at what I wanted out of my own life, what was right, what was wrong. And I think then after coming out of that I realized that I was in the wrong relationship, and I was in the wrong place, and I was talking to the wrong people, and I had the wrong mindset. I had the wrong value system, and everything that I'd done beforehand was wrong. Which at the age of 47 is quite a hard thing to accept. But then I stripped it all back down, and I then started to build myself back up. At the time, I'd been clean from gambling for since about May. So this carried on then. I met a new person who came into my life at the beginning of last year, and because of the person I was at the time, because of the person I was before, I would not have connected with this person. But because of the person I'd become or was becoming at that time, we connected amazingly, and are still getting stronger day by day, nearly even with the attempts of COVID to keep us apart. And our relationship she's been a real strength for me. But unfortunately then, as I say, the beginning of lockdown came. The divorce was quite acrimonious. As I say, using my own vulnerability against me, was quite a hard pill to swallow. The mounting sort of legal costs on top of already having debt which I'd accumulated, and then the isolation, losing everything, the ability to go out and talk to people, that caused me to relapse last year during lockdown. And something that I'd never done before was being online a lot, was the crack cocaine of gambling, the online gambling, where it's just so easy to log in and switch across everything to them. They text you, they message you, they send you emails, they send you the lovely rewards that you'll get for everything you lose, you get 5% back. So you think, well, when you look at that normally, you think, why are you doing that? That is like the worst offer ever. But it's all inciting you, and it was the perfect storm for me to relapse, because I put blocks in place that I had through the CBT, but I didn't have the strength at that time, and I didn't have the support network. So I had a real battle at the time. I went back to a CBT. I called on that. I confided in my partner, Liz, at the time, and I didn't get the judgment that I did before when I'd confided in people. Well, confided in the person who said she cared about me. I got a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding, especially from my sister, who pointed me in the way of GA, Gamblers Anonymous. Now, as I stated before, I'm not a religious person in the slightest. As I say, while I will accept anyone's views, I don't like the potential preaching nature of some religious ways. And to me, GA always seemed to smack of a religious kind of overtones. But I did reach a point where I thought, I'm going to put my own preconceptions to one side and take the plunge, because, again, what else is there? I've got nothing else to lose. And I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't the way that some members do have their faith, others members do have their experiences, other members have family members, but the feeling of the first meeting, although it was online and it still has been online, I've never been to a face-to-face GA meeting, the feeling of immediate belonging, the non-judgmental side, the sharing of experiences, the outpourings of people, and it just kind of struck a chord with me, and I really felt like I wanted to be more part of this. I feel like I wanted to try and explore this as much as I can. But then also, I still do like looking at the mental health side of it, and I do feel there is several schools of thought within the GA. All of them are very successful at keeping the gambling at bay, but there is more of some of the divide is more to stopping the gambling, keeping it away, come to the meetings, whereas I myself don't see my gambling as a problem. I see my gambling as escape from my problems, as a procrastination from my problems. The gambling is the end product of my problems, and that's what I've, by peeling away at things and exploring avenues and changing, as I say, my value system and what I actually care about, don't care about, focusing on things, that has been my personal the start of my journey to recovery. Because the other thing is, a lot of people say you're on a road to recovery, and it's like, well, that is going to last with you forever. This path, you have to travel with the gambling. It's there. It's part of your life, which I learned quite early on, through some more of the readings that I've done with some of the modern self-help, such a crass term, the likes of Mark Manson, Jordan Peterson, and their sort of modernistic takes on old psychoanalysis. That resonated a lot with me, because I like an analogy, should we say. A lot of what they said spoke to me and made me question what I'd done and why I'd done it, and not only that, sort of pointed me in a million and one directions of how to expand my own beliefs as well. And I believe it's a strange feeling that the more I've opened up, the more I've opened my vulnerability, the stronger I've become, but also the more compassionate I think I've become, the less judgmental I've become, the more all these things which sometimes people strive to become, I've kind of felt like I've become by doing something completely different and just taking a more open view of my life and other people's lives as well. I did, one of the things I did during lockdown is I did an online introduction level 2 to mental health. So I wanted to do that. So I qualified with that. I've just now I've just signed up for an online, I think it's a level 2 counselling course, and I really do want to not just explore my own, but try and lead by example. I know there's a lot of GA groups out there, and I've looked at a lot of them on Facebook, and I know there's a lot of silent members, people who still haven't broken through that barrier of pain and shame and guilt which addiction brings. It's especially with gambling, with it being the only sort of known or acknowledged by some certain medical professions as a behavioral addiction, as opposed to drugs and drink and various things that change your physical state. Gambling is a physical addiction, is a behavioral addiction, but it does cause. It's a very a solitary addiction. People kind of think, oh, the gamblers get together in the bookies and go down the horse race. It's not. The real compulsive gamblers are the ones who will stop on the motorway just to go and put money in the fruit machines, who will sleep in the car overnight till the casino's open to go into them, to bet on sports they know nothing about. I mean, in a way, I'm quite more of a unique gambling addict, in as much as mine has always been the fruit machines, fixed odds betting terminals, and the online versions of such. I've been to horse races with stag doos. I've been to casinos. I've bought lottery tickets. I've even been to Vegas. And when I've been with people and stuff like that, the urge itself hasn't been there. I could buy a lottery ticket. I could buy a scratch card. I could lose a fiver. I could win a fiver on the horses. And that's it. It's part of the fun. It's done. The social side of things. It's for me, that encapsulates like a part of my life. The gambling, which has affected me, the compulsion is to go away and go to the bookies and play on a fruit machine or play on a fixed odds betting terminal on my own, becomes feeding bits of paper into a machine and going out and taking more bits of paper and sticking that into a machine. The concept of money, the value of money dissipates, is gone, until you realize you can take no more bits of paper out of the hole in the wall. You've shoved them all into that machine and you think, that's this month's rent gone, or that's this month's holiday money, or whatever horrible thing it is. And then that's the crashing realization. I think that a lot of gambling addicts then feel that while they've been feeding this addiction, they've hurt so many other people. And because they're not psychologically changed, as with drinking or drugs or anything like that, the harsh reality, I believe, hits them a lot harder, a lot quicker. There's no waking up in the days. You know, as soon as you cannot take any more money out of that machine, or your bank balance has been emptied into an online account, that not only have you done wrong, you're actually in a very heightened physical state that you know you have done wrong. And that's when I believe that, you know, certain people may, in that instance, take it upon themselves that, you know, the world is a better place without them, which is such a tragic waste of life. And I hope that me bearing as much of my soul and saying, you know, it can happen to anyone. You know, it's the funny thing, when I joined GA, again, I had a preconceived idea of what the members would be like. And again, how far off the mark, young, old, men, women, every religion, every colour, that it is indiscriminate as death itself. It touches so many people. I can see patterns. I can see people who are successful businessmen. I can see sportsmen. I can see people who have got a desire to win, whether that's part of the psychoanalysis, part of the drive that wants them to win. It becomes a win-loss situation, which they take into the gambling. But the GA side of things has really opened my eyes to it. And you know, as I say, certain people, I don't think I've been onto a GA meeting where there's very rarely been people who haven't relapsed, who've gone a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 5 and 15 years, but then something will happen and they will relapse. Where I so far since I joined GA, I haven't relapsed, and I want to try and keep exploring why I did what I did, whilst having all the advice and the blocks and the support and the physical blocks in place. Again, one of the beauties of this lockdown has meant that casinos and betting shops and the like have been shut. So again, that temptation has been taken a lot away from a lot of people. So when that opens again, I need to hold my nerve there, or put blocks in place, or put things in place. But I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling positive. I feel like now it's not just about putting all the stops in place. It's about me going out and trying to be evangelical about what happened to me could happen to anyone. Don't have all the answers, but if I can at least get someone to say, you know what, he's just a normal guy who's done shitty things, but he's not, you know, it's again another one of the psychological things which I used on myself, separating the sinner from the sin. What I did was terrible. What I did was very bad, and did affect myself and people around me. But I'm not a bad person. I don't deserve vilification, unwarranted vilification, certainly from all angles, which a lot of gamblers or a lot of addicts themselves feel that they do, feel that they're worthless. They lose all worth of life because of their addiction. And I think if you can get a hold on it, and if you can realize that, yeah, it's what you did was bad. There is a reason why you did it. And it also can be, it can never be cured per se, I don't think, but it certainly can be managed in a way that you can live your life with the demons. Again, another one of the these sort of things, the analogies that I read, or psychological sort of tricks that I've done, is accepting my demon and befriending it, sort of thing. The more you try to fight against gambling or an addiction, the more I feel that it pushes away, and it tempts you. It wants you to come to the dark side. Whereas if the gambling of my demon has become my friend, friends don't want you to fail. Friends don't want you to be upset and sad and horrible. So while it's there and I can see it and I know it's there and I've acknowledged it, and other people have acknowledged that I can see it and it's there, well, I'm quite happy with it just being there and knowing where it's there, and knowing that it's not going to be when I'm in a dark place or when I'm in an emotional place, high or low, that it's going to drag me down a dark alley to a shining fruit machine to waste not just money, but also another thing I've realized is waste how much time I've wasted. I said before about my daughter, and I think certainly with a gambling addiction, I know with physical based addictions, drink and drugs, etc., there is physically only so much you can do before you pass out or do something worse. Whereas with gambling, you literally can go on for hours and days and weeks until everything is gone. And that time is more precious. Money comes and goes. The time you'll never get back. I'm 50 this year, and I find more upsetting the time I've wasted away from the people and the things I love that I've lost. I will never get that back. Money can be earned or inherited or whatever. It can work for my money. Again, money is just a means to an end, but time with people, that you never get that back. And again, that was another one of my driving factors to say that, it's not about the money. Forget the money. If you can, okay, I've got a relatively decent job and I have family who have supported me. But if you can get by with what you've got, get on a scheme, a debt relief scheme. There's plenty of companies out there who organise, sort of structure your debts for you to make it manageable. I think once you start realising that, and it may take years to pay it off, but when you're in that feeling and the feeling of dread, the feeling that the letters through the door that people are hiding, you're putting in the bin, every time there's a knock on the door, you scared to answer it for someone maybe after money. When you've got all that taken care of, then you can start putting the blocks back in place. But it really isn't. I felt it really was important to put family and friends and loved ones, give them the time, and that was more important than to money for me anyway. I need a drink now.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Karl. I've taken a few notes here, so if you heard any tippy tapping whilst you were speaking, it wasn't me being distracted.
We're looking at the football scores then.
No, just making some notes because I want to kind of come back to some of those really powerful points that you've expressed there. And the first one I want to come back to is, it seems to me you've had several crossroads moments. You spoke about that one where you had three choices. One was to continue doing what you'd always doing until everything imploded. Another was to take responsibility and make changes, and the other was to take your own life. And I'm very pleased you chose the road that you did. So that was clearly a big crossroads moment. And then it seems to me you've had other ones as well. So, getting into a supportive relationship, the whole pandemic situation and the relapse, but having that support there in place and the non-judgmental approach of your current partner to support you through that. And these all seem like really key points where you could have gone down a very dark road, but you're choosing the light road, I suppose.
Yes. I think, I just picked up on something you said there, was taking responsibility. I think that's been a very big factor in my life. To paraphrase one of the people I spoke about before was Mark Manson. I do like his books, and one of his pieces he wrote was that he saw a great quote that said, with great power comes great responsibility, which he thought was very great, and he put it down, and he was kind of ridiculed from it because people said, yeah, that was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man who said that. But then he took it one step further, which I really truly believe. He said that actually Uncle Ben got it the wrong way around. It's actually the other way. He said with great responsibility comes great power. And that's what I found. The more responsibility I've taken for my own actions, and the responsibility that I've taken that I can't control others' actions, has given me a lot firmer footing in what my life is and what my meaning is and what I'm doing. Again, I don't attest to hold all the answers, and like the rest of us, like the rest of everyone, most of the time I'm winging it just like everyone else. But I think being able to look at the wider picture, being able to take all the areas of points of information before making an informed choice, as opposed to rushing ahead and maybe less acting on my feelings and emotions, which change from potentially minute to minute. Some may say I'm quite impulsive and over exuberant of certain things, but I think being over exuberant or being against being impulsive in an aggressive manner, which I know I used to be, is something now that I've kind of tried to take a back seat on and try to learn not just from my mistakes, but from other people's mistakes as well, but also learn from what has worked from people, what hasn't worked from people, and to try and lead by my own example, and not to expect to tell people what to do, but in return not to listen to people who tell me what I should do neither, which I feel again was something that I had for a lot of my life, and I never kind of rebelled against it or questioned it. That's probably a better way. So I was told a lot of times that, I wasn't good, I was worthless, I was this, I was that. And instead of finding my own inner strength to sort of say, well, actually, I'm not, until my own self-awareness kicked in quite recently. I'm actually now, everything I say or do, I've thought it out, so I will stand by my actions. I will also, I feel like I'm, as was shown very recently, that I will also, if my actions were wrong, I will change them. I will listen, and I'll be able to be fluid. And I think that is, somebody who has very rigid beliefs, and potentially before I was quite very judgmental, or very, had very firm opinions on certain things, whereas now I'm not. I do want to see, as I said before, the wider picture, and I think all of this, it's not as direct as I think some of the people in GA. They have a more immediate kind of structure to what works for them, and it has worked for a long time, and I applaud them for it. But I feel like personally my own addiction and my own pathway is working for me, and I want to explore it as much as I can. I'm not going to say it's going to work. Hopefully it will. But I expect to be bumps in the road, but I expect by that time when I hit a bump in the road to have built a good enough support network of people that I can discuss that bump in the road, and we can look at it not being, I think what else did I listen to recently? Jordan Peterson's on stories about where your life becomes a comedy or a tragedy. A comedy story is you'll go along, you'll hit a bump in the road in your story, but you actually go around the bump and you still get to the end of your story. It's taken a different pathway, but you still reach the end. Whereas a tragedy is you hit the bump in the road and you never get to the end of your story. And in Shakespearean terms, everyone ends up dead, which we don't want. But again, I take quite a lot of these, and I think the simplicity of them resonates a lot with me, and I think I do like to share sort of a lot of these simplistic sort of theories. Yeah, again, they're not for everyone, but for me, they resonate. And I think if people want to debate with me about them, I like that now. I like being challenged, not for before I'd want to be challenged, especially on the sports arena, for aggression and for physical strength, etc. Whereas now I like to be challenged intelligently and without malice or without judgment. But I really do like a good exchange of ideas and views of looking at things and taking things from other people and trying to fit them into my value systems or beliefs, or if I believe that their version is better than mine, being able to shift my things. And that's where I'm at the moment. And hopefully I'll continue like this until the day death taps me on the shoulder, because I just want to keep expanding and exploring.
Yeah, thanks for that, Karl. And that's just reminded me, those bumps in the road has reminded me of a poem, I suppose it is, by Portia Nelson, which I've just quickly Googled. So I'm going to share the screen, and I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. Here we go. Chrome tab. There we go. Share that. Right. So autobiography in 5 short chapters. Can you see that, Karl?
Just about. I'll have to zoom in.
Yeah. So I'll read it out. It says, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's habit. It's my fault. I know where I am. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. So that's Portia Nelson. I like that. How does that land with you?
Oh, yeah. I like, as I say, I like a good analogy, and that stuff like that it breaks it down into simplistic terms for me, which resonates, as I said before, with me, and is also easy to, as you say, explain certain things. I think that the analogy I think that I listened to was with the Jordan Peterson one, was the boy walking to school with his mum, and the story, what happens is a dog jumps out, the boy is scared, but he carries on walking, and the various analogies when the dog jumps out. Does a parent get scared? Does a parent reassure him? Does he move? And again, it's very similar, but you get past these things, and hopefully you get past them, and the parent becomes the hero of the story because he calms the person down. And does the boy then look at the parent who is also terrified, and the boy then gets terrified because his point was his safety was the parent. So if the parent is terrified, what hope does he have? So yeah, there's a lot of analogy in there, which I found fascinating. Then to break it down, that there is things are going to get thrown at you whether you like them or not. That's what life is, and problems are there to be overcome, and the responsibility is to not to seek out problems, but certainly to face them head on and ask for help. I think that's another thing that a lot of addicts in the shame and guilt stage of their addiction feel that they are alone and they can't ask for help and no one understands where they are. When in fact, I think the last thing was 1 in 3 people has some kind of addiction. So there's a hell of a lot of addicts out there. So someone is going to be in pretty much the same boat as you, thinking it or not. Yeah,
and like you say, Karl, the shame and the guilt can be such a barrier to people speaking out and seeking help, and even just addressing the problem themselves, because it is a very difficult thing to manage on your own, as your story perhaps attests to that. So having those non-judgmental spaces or non-judgmental individuals to go to, such as Gamblers Anonymous, peer support groups, which you've used, and friends, family, partners who don't come at you with a judgmental approach, is incredibly supportive, I imagine, in your recovery process.
Yeah, it certainly is. Again, I think the way I took it on board myself and felt quite empowered and reached out, but then I do think it takes the whole range of these, tapping into all of them, having the access to all of them, but also giving yourself over to all of them as well, in as much as being a conduit of what they do as well, and taking the responsibility to other addicts who are still in the shadows, to sort of say, come and join us, break through that. The hardest barrier is the first barrier, the guilt, the shame. I think I'm still only been a couple of months in the Gamblers Anonymous properly, so I think there is one to say that admitting that you are powerless to your addiction is pretty much the first thing, and to admit that is the hardest step, I feel. And I think a lot of felt that, as you said, the guilt and the shame. And once you've kind of got past that step, even a half step, and you can feel you're not being judged, you can feel that when you go to GA, I know members have started joining now after me, and they don't wish to speak, or they don't wish to give their therapy. They just listen. But then in time, they come on. In time, they actually look at the therapies. Now I know myself of, say, 10, 15 therapies in a group session one night, I'll probably take, there's probably parts of maybe 75% of them which I would say, yep, that's me, yep, that's me, yep, that's me. And all of a sudden, this feeling that you're alone, that this problem is something that only you are handling, it dissipates, and it starts losing its power over you, and you realize that there is a way to deal with it, and there's people there to attest who've been coming to GA for 10, 15, 20, 25. I had a guy who was on, I think it was 35 years last week. I mean, the amazing thing again about the online one is the Manchester GA group. They've got people, I think there was a guy from the lady I was speaking to last week from California, from Seattle, somebody came from South Africa, someone from Australia. And it's one of the times the internet is actually being used for good. So often you hear of it being used for the wrong reasons. And I think this is one time where it has actually helped people reach out across the world. I think there is a website, I think it's called Gamblers in Recovery, which literally lists all the meetings going on in various places throughout the world. So it literally means that any time of day or night, wherever you are, you can click on and go to a meeting. And hopefully this phenomenon will be carried on after the pandemic and after everything gets opened up, because I think there's going to be a lot more people, once they get the freedom, who will suddenly find that, that some of their barriers have been opened up for them to make it a lot easier to gamble again.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point, Karl. And going back to what you said earlier about not focusing on the behaviour, not vilifying the behaviour. It reminded me of non-violent communication. I don't know if you're aware of that at all.
No, it's not an area I've looked at.
Okay, it's a really useful communication tool, but it's actually a way of life as well.
Right.
Something that I use with my clients quite often. And it's about, rather than, if there's somebody in your family or a friend or something who is exhibiting behavior that doesn't meet with your approval or is causing some kind of difficulties or conflict, it's not focusing on the behavior, but focusing on what the need is underneath that behavior. Mm-hmm. So you connect on a heart level, and it's what you said earlier, Karl, about compassion, just having compassion for that other person, compassion for what their need is, and trying to meet the need rather than vilifying the behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, separating the sinner from the sin.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another way of putting it. Yeah, thank you. So the other thing I wanted to touch on was the triggers for you personally. I know it'll be different for different people, Karl, who identify as addicts or compulsive gamblers. But for you, it seemed to me there were emotional triggers. So it was when you weren't kind of in your window of tolerance. If you were kind of feeling super high, or you were feeling sad, or you were feeling rejected or lonely, whatever, that was a trigger for you. Would that be right?
Yeah, and the more I've kind of expressed that for myself, there seems to be quite a general consensus, especially amongst a lot of the GA members, that they have kind of felt the same. I know a lot more emphasis is placed that you do it when you're down, or when you're sad, or when you can't, you're in a bad place, for want of a better phrase. But then when you actually say, well, there's other times when you've just been happy or elated, or it's just sometimes it then has become a compulsion. It then I did look into it recently about the difference between addiction and compulsion, and there is subtle differences, and the changing from an addiction where it is a pleasure to a compulsion where it becomes a need. And I think by the time a gambling addict has become a compulsive gambler, there is no pleasure drawn from winning or losing. And one of my very sort of first meetings, quite a long-time member said something which has always stuck with me, saying, when you're a compulsive gambler, there is never enough that you can win. There's not enough money in the world that you can win. And I looked into, there was an article about, I think, one of the New York universities did about lottery winners. And it was saying something quite a high percentage. I think it was like 60 or 70% of lottery winners are broke within 5 years. And it's, you think, oh, if I just win that bit more, if I just win that bit more, I just win that bit more. And you don't. It's always it's the compulsion of the actual act. The money isn't immaterial. What it'll bring to you, what security it could bring to you and your family. And I think the problem is, all gamblers, me included, have said, oh, we're lucky. It's just then your luck changes. And I think if you're actually lucky, and I know there is professional gamblers, for want of a better word, I think they have got the knack that they separate the act from their feelings. They will have a set amount. They will have, when they win or when they lose, they will walk away. And that's a knack. That's, I think that's something that a compulsive gambler will never have.
But because of that emotional tie.
Yeah, the emotional tie to it. But in a way, though, I kind of think when I've gambled as a social experience, when I've gone to the horse races as a stag do, when I've gone to a casino with friends and a night out, when I've gone to bingo with my sister or something like that, I've never wanted, or when I've bought a lottery ticket, I've never bought 100 lottery tickets. I've never, put all my savings on a horse. I've never done, when I'm in a social environment, or even in sort of it's always been quite specific that I've used the fruit machines. That has been my thing. So I think in that way, I had separated the social element. As I say, I even went to Vegas with my sister and her husband and my partner at the time. And even though there was all the fruit machines there, because I was with a social bubble, that kept my emotions were kind of in that check, in that sort of immediacy with the people around me. And there was never the need to go off in secret and do it. But I think if I'd have gone to Vegas on my own, I don't think I would have come out alive. I probably would have ended up jumping off one of the tall buildings. But with that kind of thing, but I do see, as I say, a lot of the people that I've spoke to on the GA and listened to their therapies, they have a whole range of, of means of gambling, whereas mine has been quite niche, and maybe I'm one of the lucky ones, for one of for a better phrase, for an addict, that mine is quite quite a concentrated area of where I've put all my energies. But again, though, I can see I don't know. As I say, yeah, maybe if I left to my own devices to go to Vegas or left to my own devices to go to a casino, I've never had the urge to do that. But I can never say never, so I have to be vigilant about that, and just keep sort of trying to wrap myself in more and more layers of security, and by giving back what I'm learning as well, that is slowly happening.
So it's having those protections in place, and as you said earlier, just learning more about yourself so you can understand what your triggers are and understand where it comes from. And I think this feels like a good time to bring in a couple of Gabor Mate quotes. I'm a big fan of him, hence the book recommendation. I'm pleased you read it. I hope you got something out of it, Karl. So the first thing he says that really struck me is that addiction is the opposite of connection.
Yeah.
So, talking about earlier on, we said there's behaviour, but underneath that behaviour, there's a need. And what Gabor Mate is suggesting in terms of gambling, whether it's in terms of addiction, whether it's gambling, alcohol, food, or whatever it is, work, excuse me, there is a need underneath it, and it's generally a need for connection. Would you say that rings true with yourself?
Yes, I think so. But also, I in some ways, I think someone else, I think it was Mark Manson, had said that he felt that there was more an area when addiction becomes when you have a crisis of hope, which I kind of think for myself, I feel that both elements are kind of true. Yeah, you want a connection, but in some instances, I think, where I found myself in situations where I have communicated or connected with people, but there's other elements that are at play, which I either haven't taken my own personal responsibility for, or someone else has taken control of that responsibility. And that gives me an area where, because I see a hopeless situation, that I've run away from it. I think that is more the gambling on the low side. I think where Gabor Mate is more the gambling when you sort of, or doing your drinks and drugs when you're more in a more elated sort of kind of mood away from things. But I do think both of them are not sort of individual, and I think there's kind of elements of both of them certainly ring true in what I've been through. And I think sort of an emergence of both. I think that they are both kind of high trigger points for causing an addiction.
Yeah, and you mentioned much earlier about some things that happened to you in childhood. And I'm not going to ask you to go into that unless you particularly want to, but very often, from my psychotherapy training, that those unhelpful behaviours that we exhibit in later life or adulthood very often have their roots in childhood.
Yeah,
something that's happened, a trauma or a lack of connection or a need that was not met, and that's kind of manifests as something knocking on the door.
I know. Yeah, the more I've kind of peeled away at things, there is things that have gone on in my dim and distant past, which are not family related. As I say, I know certain people have problems with parents and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my father passed away over 20 odd years ago now, and my mum, it's her birthday tomorrow. She's very much alive and been very much a part of my life ever since. And it's been, although the problem I think with her has been her desire to help me has been one of my own undoings. Again, the tough love I think I probably should have received from her, I never did. I think she's always picked me up as most parents would do. They want the best for their children. But unfortunately, that enabled me that was an enabler. And unwittingly, it meant that I could carry on, I could carry on. Luckily, I came to my senses before I drained my own and hers and everyone else's finances who would give to me. But I have heard stories through GA where people have gone through parents, loved ones accounts. And as I said before, the ironic thing was with my now ex-wife, who put gambling down as the cause for our divorce, was, I can say hand on heart that I never ever took a penny of her money. And which I think was one of kind of the triggers when I did relapse, that the unfairness of it, until I actually realized that, move on from it. Life's unfair. You've got to deal with what you can deal with. And that's kind of what I did. And instead of throwing my money, and again, as I said before, my time, which is more valuable than money. You have a finite amount of time, and it's always ticking. That I needed to come to my senses. I think also one of the things that gamblers find hard to do is let go of the past. I had to close the door on it. You had to close the door on the money's gone, the time is gone, and wallowing in your own self-pity is not going to bring that back. You've got to change what you are doing now in the present and give yourself a future. And I think once that realization hits, it is like a light bulb moment to a lot of, especially gambling addicts. Again, because there is no physical dependency upon another substance, the way alcohol, nicotine, narcotics take that physical hold potentially as well, which is also how you have to get that out of your system. With gambling, you really just have to try and change your habits, and changing the habits for a more positive way is the way I found how I've changed my habits. Again, there was more that I looked into or read about, setting small time goals and setting targets and stuff like that. And again, I think we discussed on Facebook and one of your comments the other day about the problems with goals and targets is once you reach them, where do you go then? Like I think you said about diets, as I well know myself in my present shape, that you can change, you can aim to lose your weight, you can lose your weight, but once you've lost your weight, what you've done, whereas you can just change your habit, eat healthily, go for a run, go for a ride, whatever. It makes life a lot easier, more pleasant, and hey ho, you've lost the weight anyway that you were trying so hard to do before, and you've done it in a lot nicer and easier way, and it stays off, and it becomes your change of lifestyle. And that kind of is what I've done psychologically myself, changed my sort of value systems, my outlook, and moved away from setting myself goals. I must do this, I must do that, and just dealing with changing my habits, looking at certain things in the present. I
want to go back to something really powerful that you said, which gave me the tingles a couple of minutes ago, Karl. You said you've got to change some, I'm paraphrasing now, so I can't remember exactly, but you said something like you've got to change your behaviors in the present in order to give yourself a future. And that's just a wonderful strap line for any kind of addiction support group, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, as I say, that's how I kind of visualized and conceptualized my own feelings. And you do have to sort of sever your ties as much as you can with the past. That you can't change your past, whether it's your past or anyone else's past, and you can only change your own habits. And that's kind of what I've done, and that's worked for me. And discussing it with a lot of other people who are in the GA and close to me, and they kind of, hopefully they're kind of looking at changing their own habits for good, or for a more positive sort of way. And people are seeming to sort of say, actually, that kind of works for me, which again makes me feel good about myself, because if I can help someone else just by showing them what I've done, that's growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why you're here, isn't it? That you're sharing this in order to educate, inform, inspire, connect with, normalize, and also it's part of your own healing journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I put you onto the interview that I did before with Talk About It, Mate, the peer-to-peer support group, and it was bizarre when I was asked to do it. It was quite an intrepid moment. I'd never done this kind of thing before, but after I did it, I felt so much weight lifted and such empowerment from it. And then when you said come on this live, again it was like, oh, live trepidation, oh. But it's like at the moment I felt like now when you take things and shine a light on these issues and problems, I feel that the more and more light is shone on my problems, the less and less power it has over me. And it is I just need to say to people who are struggling and who you know, if you take that first step, one, you'll be surprised about how much support and positive support you will get. I think the more people start visualizing an addiction as an illness, and looking at it in as much as you wouldn't demonize a person with cancer or someone who's caught COVID, yet you will look down on a gambling addict or a compulsive drinker or someone uses drugs, and it really is, it's an illness. It's the end of their illness. It's the malignant tumor in their body of cancer is their addiction, and you need to help them get better, not just vilify them. And I think that is, I mean, I've watched, who's the other one now that I've recently watched, although I think some of the stuff is, some people take her stuff to watch, is Laura Cleary and her husband Stephen Hilton in America. They both were, I think they both were drinking drugs, addicts, and they both got clean, and he relapsed, and she's a blogger and comedian, and her husband relapsed, and they have made some of them are quite humorous takes on it, but very powerful, especially Stephen Hilton has recently done a video of the 12 steps of his own alcohol recovery, and he's opened up and he's done a lot of videos. He did a great one about him being proud to be an addict, because him being an addict and open up, like hopefully like I'm doing in my own little way, is showing that it can affect anyone, and anyone can relapse for whatever reason, but you know, it's not something to be shameful of, and I think they're, again, using the internet and using technology and spreading the word for a lot better reasons than, you know, pornography or other types of the internet use.
Yeah, and you being here, you're doing the same thing, Karl. So thank you again. So I just want to touch on a couple more things before we end. So the first thing is, I should have got this in at the beginning, really. Gabor Mate again, his definition of an addiction. He says, an addiction is a complex psychophysiological process, but it has a few key components. He'd say that an addiction manifests in any behavior that a person finds temporary pleasure or relief in, and therefore craves, but suffers negative consequences from and has trouble giving up. Mm-hmm. So that aligns with what you were saying earlier around the difference between addiction and a compulsion. But so many things can be an addiction. If we take that definition of something that we take temporary pleasure or relief in and therefore crave, but we get negative consequences from, it can be anything from, like I said earlier, work addiction, chocolate, shopping, sex,
video games.
Video games. So it's good to raise that awareness, and what you have embodied really beautifully, I think, Karl, is raising the awareness in yourself, getting support from others. That's the key thing, I think, is reaching out, getting support. And when you had that support network in place, you then have the resilience to be able to face down what's happened to you, the fact that it's an illness, embrace that shadow side of yourself and say, yeah, do you know what, I'm powerless against this, it's part of me. And then just put in these protective mechanisms around it, and with that, a load of self-compassion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, great stuff. So before we end, Karl, is there anything else that you want to bring?
No, I think you've shared the. I would just say to people who this does resonate with, that you're not alone. asking for strength, actually asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. And so many people get that the wrong way around. There's the Gamblers Anonymous. That's actually who I went through and found the Manchester group. There's phone numbers on there, there's websites, there's emails on there. If anyone's stuck or anyone wants to speak to me privately, they can get my details through Paul. I'm happy to share, and I'm happy to give time to anyone who wants that, and I'll get them involved in the local groups. And that's that's all I can do at the moment, and I'll just keep on going as I'm going.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for your kindness in offering yourself as a resource as well, Karl. It's much appreciated. So how's this been for you?
Again, as I said before, I just find it immensely cathartic. Sort of, it does. Yeah, there's the tension, there's the stress, there's the human fear of the unknown. Something I've never done before, these kind of interviews, but each time I do it, it feels like I'm unburdening more. And my hope is that, as I say, it will resonate with somebody who will see this and think, actually, I can take that step forward. I can ask for help. And if it saves someone's life, or it saves someone's thoughts, or it saves someone's marriage, or it saves someone's sanity, I'll sleep better at night. But that's all I can do, is keep myself moving on day by day and trying to communicate and reach out for people as well. And I think the people, I spoke to someone on a Facebook Gamblers Anonymous group recently that I felt like there was quite a lot of members on it, but there didn't seem to be much interaction on it. And I said, I've not been on here very long, and there's not much interaction. And somebody said, well, a lot of gamblers are scared to take that step, or scared to move out. And I said, I've been to face-to-face meetings, I've been to the mental health peer-to-peer support group meetings, been to Gamblers Anonymous. I know exactly how tough that first barrier is to break, but I know that there is probably a lot of members who have broke that barrier, and it becomes down to their responsibility to actually generate some interaction, stimulate it as well, put the hand out to offer these people out of the shadows, show them that there is a way out, and that's how I feel like I want to do. I want to take responsibility. I can't change I can't change the way people are, or people think, or what people do. But what I can do is I can show them what I've done, and I can hopefully lead by example, and show them that, yeah, there is by sharing your experiences, the gambling or the addiction, whatever it is, will hopefully lose its power over you, and you can start living a fuller and happier and more contented life.
One day at a time, as they
Absolutely,
say.
one day. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a lovely message to end on. I think that there's always hope, regardless Absolutely. Of what your addiction is, whether you have a mental health issue. There is always hope, and the key step, which can be very hard to take, is to reach out and just speak to someone, whether it's a friend, someone in a peer support group, a counsellor, whoever it is. Just talk about it.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, Karl, thank you very much. That's I'm humbled that you've shared in Pathlight Thrive Hive your journey, and inspired by your recovery and reaching out for help, and taking responsibility for your life. And I really like that phrase of changing your behaviour in the present in order to give yourself a future. Lovely. So thanks again, Karl, and best wishes.
Thank you for the platform to share.
Very welcome. Yeah, very welcome. Thanks, Karl. See you soon.
See you soon.
There we go, folks. So hopefully you enjoyed that or took something from it, whether you are a gambler, know a gambler, if you're supporting someone, if there's someone in your life who perhaps has some kind of addiction, then maybe you've learned something there, how to support them, how to be with them, with that non-judgmental and compassionate attitude. So thank you, Karl. Thank you for those of you that have been watching. I'm not sure who this is, but it says, "Thank you for your wonderful honesty, Karl, and God bless." And there's a kiss there as well, so that's all good. I think I know who that might be from. So thank you. Right, so do please share the group. But if you're in the group, do share it. It's Pathlight Thrive Hive. If you're watching on YouTube, then that's the group down there. You can come and join us, and we have lots of wonderful guests, and it's a lovely supportive community with lots of wonderful stuff going on. Although I say so myself, it's not just me, it's everyone else that makes the group. So come along and invite other people as well. And if you are enjoying it, if you're getting benefit from being here, it's all free, but you can drop me some virtual coffees if you like at buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. And finally, I'll give myself another plug again for my actual company, which is Pathlight Limited. And if you're interested in mental health first aid training, workplace wellbeing programs, coaching for individuals and families, or webinars or workshops all around mental health and wellbeing, then Pathlight Limited is the place to go. Pathlight.org.uk, or drop me an email, info@pathlight.org.uk. And it's, what is it? It's International Women's Day today. So wonderful. Yeah, great stuff. It's quite ironic, I suppose, that we've had a man in Pathlight Thrive Hive this evening, because I think something like 90% of the special guests we have are female. So on International Women's Day, we had a man in, but that was just luck of the draw. Anyway, there we are. Happy International Women's Day, whether you're a woman or not. Let's honour all the women in our lives. Okay, that's it for now. We've got another talk coming up in about 2 weeks' time. So I won't say anything about that just yet, but the details will be on the Facebook group shortly. And if you'd like to get involved, if you've got a story to tell, then everyone's got a story to tell, haven't they? Drop me a line and we can have a chat about having a chat. Okay, so take care of yourselves and be kind to each other, especially if you have someone in your life who has some kind of addiction. Let's do what we can to support them and signpost them to some support, and be lovely and compassionate. Take care, folks. See you soon. Bye.